Hoffman back with insane content! In this video, we're gonna install some new parts and we're gonna... Hello?
Mr. Bill Gates, hello. Yes, 1 million subscribers recently. Thank you. It is quite the accomplishment, yes. That's very kind. I already have a sponsorship for this video, though. Yeah, exactly. Better luck next time. I understand. All right. Thank you, sir. That's very kind. All right. Bye now. Bye.
Anyway, we'll be installing some new parts today. We'll be installing these polyurethane rear differential bushings along with the dual mount rear differential brackets. All this is made possible by the sponsor of this video, Powerflex. They were kind enough to sponsor the Hunter Hoffman so that some more insane content can be created. Alright, so the install's quite the job, so let's get into it!
Alright, so first we're gonna loosen the wheels, get the car in the air and remove the rear wheels. So this is the OEM single mount differential bracket that we're gonna replace. As you can see, the bracket holds the differential via one bushing in the subframe, whereas the subframe has room for 2 bushings. So with the help of the Powerflex bracket, we're gonna fill both holes.
That's what she said.
So the first step is to remove the exhaust completely. With the help of these transmission jacks, we could safely support the exhaust when unbolting it. So we decided to remove the rubber hangers along with their braces instead of undoing the exhaust from the rubber hangers. There are 2 13mm bolts holding down the braces and 6 Allen bolts holding down the brace in the middle. Then it's a matter of disconnecting the exhaust from the downpipe and pulling it off its hanger in the middle. Should you have an exhaust with controllable valves, don't forget to disconnect the control modules. Alright, so then it's time to remove the heat shields of the exhaust. These are bolted down with 10mm bolts. So after removing that plastic underbody panel, we gain access to this underbody brace. It's held down by 3 16mm bolts and 2 Allen bolts. After removing it, it's time to remove the rear brake calipers. These are held down by 18mm bolts, which are one-time use bolts. Then we let him hang on the control arms with a piece of string and repeat the same on the other side. So then we're gonna undo all the connectors. There are 2 going in the diff and loads more running to the brakes. It's wise to take a picture of how everything was connected and how the wires are running along the subframe. Know that there is a hidden earth cable mounted above the rear of the subframe. Don't forget to disconnect that as well. So then undo the bracket of the drive shaft before setting up the subframe like this. As you can see, we're supporting the subframe and the diff with these transmission jacks so that we can safely unbolt the subframe. There are 4 bolts holding the subframe against the body. Note that these are one-time use bolts. So after unbolting the subframe, we're going to lower it, but not after we had our unhealthy lunch. So after carefully lowering the jacks, the whole of the subframe and the diff are coming down. This allows access to the rear differential bushing and the bolts of the bracket holding the bushing to the subframe. So first we'll be removing the damper bolt of the bushing, before removing the bolt connecting the bushing to the bracket. The instructions say to reuse this OEM bolt and nut later on. So the top mount bolt of the bracket shown earlier was a huge pain to undo. Partly because of its position, but mostly because it was extremely stuck on there. The camera ran out of memory before us undoing it. So we move on to this bolt. Undoing this bolt allows for more movement of the diff, so that installing the Powerflex bushings and bracket is a bit easier. Note that this is a one-time use bolt. So now we move the subframe up a bit, allowing us access to the two lower bolts of the bracket. We are also going to reuse these bolts. And there we have it, the original bracket removed. Alright, for our next trick I purchased this set of tools. With these tools you can pull out bushings. This is how we set up for our bushing. So once removed, we're presented with the two empty holes of the subframe and the OEM rear diff bushing. Before installing the new bushings, we're going to give it a quick clean with some brake cleaner. After greasing up the bushings according to the instructions, it's simply a matter of sliding them in the holes of the subframe. So now it's time to install the brackets. Simply slide it in position before screwing in the top mount bolt used earlier. Again, this was quite tricky to get in there. In all honesty, it should be torqued to 120 Newton meters, but we weren't able to get a torque wrench in there, so I tightened it good and tight. Fortunately, we were able to tighten the lower bolts of the bracket with the torque wrench. So then we slightly heighten the subframe and diff again in order to bolt in a new bolt on the front of the diff. This one would also need to be torqued down to 120 Newton meters. So before we tighten down the new bushings, don't forget to reconnect the hidden earth cable. So take the aluminium flanges and put them in the bushings. Obviously the right way up. Then insert the supplied new bolt on the right hand side and the reusable OEM bolt on the left hand side. As you can see, the flange shifted when torquing it down. Yeah, so we couldn't live with that, so we tried again. Spot on! Since we were running out of time as the garage was closing and we wanted to quickly wrap things up, I couldn't be bothered with the other flange. I regret that now. Big mistake. Alright, so now that the install of the Powerflex bracket and bushings is complete, We raised the subframe again, reconnected all the connectors and wires, and bolted the subframe down provisionally. You may have noted that most of the studs came out when removing the rear wheels, mostly because the nuts were corroded stuck on the studs. So I removed all the studs, cleaned them up, and refitted them to spec with Loctite in the cleaned up hubs, and did the same on the other side. So then it was a matter of torquing everything down to spec and put everything back together again.
Don't be scared.
And yes, I have driven through white paint. And there we have it. Bracket installed, bushings installed, and everything put back together again. Time to put back on the wheels and call it a day.
Alright, that was it. It was quite the job, but it was a lot of fun. I have made a drive back from the garage, and the rear end feels a bit tighter. Also, the upshifts are more aggressive. It's pretty cool. And finally, I haven't heard any additional noise coming from the differential, which is nice. All in all, I'm very happy with this upgrade. Guys, on to the next video. If you have any suggestions for the next video, or you want me to work on some of my other cars, leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time!